Morning, everyone. It's a holiday. It's Labor Day.
Not for us.
Not for us, because we're working. We all work. It's Carrie Champion.
Day. Barbecue Day.
Here with Skip, but we got the coach sitting in during the A block. This is a big deal. And Stephen A. Smith is in Philly. How are you, Stephen A.? Happy holiday.
Good morning. Happy holiday. How y'all doing?
All the same.
Did you not go to bed? It's still good evening?
All the same.
Oh, he's waiting until after he's waiting until he get off the show. He's gonna put his. He's going to got some ribs over there brewing right now. I know what he's getting ready to do.
Coach, you having ribs after the show?
I got to work all day.
Oh, okay. Me
no
too.
barbecue for me.
Me too.
Not even a cookout.
No.
No, there's a difference between barbecue and a cookout.
Oh, no. What's the difference?
Huh?
What's the difference?
Look, cookout. Don't get it mistaken for barbecue.
Okay.
Cookout.
Okay.
Hot dogs, hamburgers.
Okay.
Barbecue. Ribs. Chicken. That's barbecue.
Okay,
don't get them mixed up. Don't get them twisted.
And education today, ladies and gentlemen.
Can we change this subject, please?
Coming up on the show today, Seahawks linebacker Bobby Wagner will join the desk. The last time he was on the show, he said the Broncos were scared during the Super Bowl. We'll ask him, is there a team that Seattle is concerned about at all? Plus, Ray McDonald arrested for felony domestic violence just days after Roger Goodell announces stiffer domestic violence penalties. We will discuss that. But first, guys, St. Louis Rams released defensive end Michael Sam. Sam is the first openly gay player to be drafted in NFL history. Rams were loaded on the D-line, and it was seemingly a tough ask for the 7th round draft pick. Sam was unclaimed on waivers, but could be put on the Rams' 10-man practice squad. Still to be determined. Coming out now, guys, let me ask you this question, and Stephen A. will start with you because we missed you Thursday and Friday. Do you think Michael Sam will land on another team?
Well, I don't think there's any question about it. He had about 3 sacks, about 11 tackles, 6 tackles. I think it was 5 or 6 tackles in one game. He showed an ability to get to the quarterback. Now, obviously, he's been labeled a tweener to some degree. Too small in terms of rushing the passer, too slow to be a linebacker, to be able to drop back in coverage. That's why our very own John Clayton has said that the likelihood is that he'll end up in a 4-3 defense as opposed to a 3-4. And that's going to rule out about half the teams in the NFL. But for those teams playing a 4-3, the likelihood is that he'll have an opportunity to land somewhere because he made it until the final cut, despite the fact that you're talking about a St. Louis Rams squad who is considered to be one of the elite teams in the game in terms of the prowess of athletes that they have on their defensive line. They've got 9 different individual defensive linemen that made the team. Now, he lost out to Ethan Westbrook because he was outplayed and Westbrook was considered to be more versatile, and we all know this. But in the end, the fact that you came down to that last Saturday and you put up the numbers, the respectable numbers in preseason that you did, I think it was enough for folks to take notice. I think it was enough for people to look at him and say that this dude can play some football, and more importantly, that he has the ability potentially to get to the passer, and he can only grow. He can get bigger. He can get a little faster, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously, he's going to work incredibly hard because he wants this badly. So when you look at those elements, I think it's clear that somebody who is considerably less in terms of quality than the St. Louis Rams, which are many of those teams, by the way, I think somebody ultimately will grab him, and he won't only make a practice squad, he'll make an NFL roster.
Coach.
Well, Steven says a lot of good things, and he basically breaks him down. He is a guy that has to play in the 4-3 defense. He's not a versatile player by any stretch of the imagination. He's not going to become one. His trait is put my hand on the ground and go rush the quarterback. I thought he had a good preseason. The numbers game always catches up with players, according to what team you're on. And generally, you keep 9 defensive linemen. You're talking about the Rams have one of the best fronts in the National Football League. And when you think about practice squads, well, how are they implemented? A lot has to do with injuries. A lot has to do with players in certain positions. And obviously, a defensive lineman is always a valuable position, but his ability to rush the passer as a 4-3 end limits his ability to go to 31 other teams. It maybe all of a sudden now 14 teams.
Yeah.
And so that's always a factor in this. I will tell you this, being in the chair of a head coach and you formulate your practice squad team, there's certain positions you're light at because you have to practice. These guys become what we call the look team of the opponent. And there's certain positions you need to have because you can't wear guys out. Obviously, wide receivers. You can't keep enough wide receivers anymore because of the way people throw the football. So you can't use your core guys. You got to use practice squad guys, maybe a third quarterback. So these numbers start adding up. And sometimes certain positions, you know what? We don't need that position. So when you think about the Rams, they've got 9 defensive linemen. So will they keep another lineman? Maybe. Yeah. But according, if there's some offensive linemen hurt, you know, and every team has to look at their squad a little bit different. After week 2, these practice squad players change. They change. This is not when you make a practice squad, you're there for 16 weeks. It changes. It's in flux. It's always in flux. You'd like to keep those guys. His best chance right now is go back to the Rams. He knows the coaches. He spent 3 months there. He's been in the system. They understand his strengths. They set up for him to have success there. This would be the best team for him to sign back on to. And I always believe rookies, if you can go back to the practice squad on your team, it gives you an up. It gives you a better chance.
Okay.
Okay, back to Kerry's question. Do I think another team will sign him? Not sure about that because I don't run those teams. Now, if you ask me, would I sign him on my 4-3 defensive team? And what are there, maybe 14 others?
14, not counting the Rams, was 15, yeah. I'll have to leave.
You better believe I would. But I've been on record since before the draft. I would have taken this young man in the 3rd round, and the Rams took him as their 3rd of 4 7th-round picks. That's how late he went in the draft. And by the way, all 4 of their 7th-round picks got cut, just to be fair about this. But to me, I am always I lean toward productive Southeastern Conference football players. He clearly was the co-defensive player of the year in the SEC, not in the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or wherever the SEC co-defensive player of the year. And every time I watched him on television in college, he did jump off my screen because he is high motor. He is high energy. He makes plays that you can't teach or coach because he's built that way. He would energize his defense, and when they were at home, his crowd. So, yeah, I'm going to give that guy a chance on my team because I think he might be able to make a play or two for me this year. And yet, I was watching NFL Network early this morning, and I saw that Ian Rappaport, their reporter, reported that he hasn't been a good practice player for the Rams. Well, how many of these guys have we seen come along? Not a great practice player, but what happened when he got in the preseason games? Did he make some things happen? Yeah, he made some things happen, right? Okay, so why wouldn't I want him on my team? Well, now it's back to coach here. We are on the verge of the regular season. Well, clearly, Michael Sam is a huge story. And I'm not saying that's a negative. He's just a huge story because he's a pioneer. He is the first, right? So would you, Coach Edwards, want him to be brought into your locker room because all your coaches and your players are going to get asked repeatedly all week this week about Michael Sam? Would you want him right now on your football team? Well, the answer is probably no because you don't want that big, and it's not a negative distraction. It's just a big story that's going to come into your fold on the verge of the regular season. Is that fair? Is that?
Oh, that's fair to say. That there's some clubs that probably feel that way, and obviously those clubs probably didn't have him on the board to draft.
Okay.
To be quite honest, I mean, when you think about what you're saying and where you're going with this, with the story, and I understand what you're saying, but I also believe this. I think even though he, you know, and Stephen A. made lieu of it, there's a difference between 53 and 46. 53, yeah, you're on the roster, but do you dress on Sunday?
Yeah.
Because only 46 players dress on Sunday, and the 46th guy happens to be the quarterback. So really 45. So when you look at the breakdown of how you break down a football team, offensively and defensively, it's about a players. Let's just say defensively, you're playing a team that runs the ball. Well, you may only dress 21 players on defense, and then the rest of them are on offense to get to your 45. So that's the problem with our league. Mm-hmm. We pay 53 guys full salary, but on Saturday night or by Sunday morning, we have to deactivate 8 players. So you don't play with 53 guys. What I'm saying, Stephen A., I'm saying you go into a game, you might only be able to dress 6 to 7 defensive linemen.
Sure. So it's
you can't dress all 9.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, Stephen A.? Okay.
But let me make this point.
Yes.
I get where you're coming from, Coach, but here's where I respectfully disagree with you. You talked about how going back to St. Louis is the best place for him to go.
Yes.
I would make the argument to you that's the worst place he could go. You know why? Because of Chris Long. Because of Quinn, because of Brockers and Langford, because of Hayes, who's your utility guy, because of Laurinaitis, Ogletree, and Dunbar and those boys in your linebacker. These boys are loaded. You know, let's be clear about something here with Michael Sam. Michael Sam doesn't want to make a roster. He wants to play. Yes. And going someplace where the talent is considerably less is where you want to go because you got a better shot. These boys in St. Louis are no joke. That's why nobody is really sweating the fact that Michael Sam was cut by Jeff Fisher. That's why people basically assumed that Saturday it was inevitable that he was going to get cut. These boys have 9 different individuals on your defensive line. Westbrook is the last dude. He's number 9. These boys are loaded. They don't need him. So if you were to bring Michael Sam back, it is clearly something to make him feel good, or you could call it PR, you call it whatever it is. I don't know. But I do know that this brother right here at this particular juncture doesn't need to be in St. Louis. It ain't because of the distractions. It ain't because of the media following. It ain't because of all of this stuff. It's because as good as he was in the SEC, Skip, as talented as he was as co-defensive player of the year in the SEC for Missouri, the brother ain't good enough right now because St. Louis is elite. On another team, he would be, but for the St. Louis Rams in the NFC West, defensively, these boys are big time. You don't get to be a 7th-round pick and penetrate a unit that has 5 first-round picks on it. Doesn't happen.
Yeah, but you brought up the point that he got the worst break possible that he could have gotten because of Ethan Westbrook's. The way Jeff Fisher is talking about this young man, he might be the biggest diamond in the undrafted free agent rough of the NFL. They're talking about him as they have discovered a potential star who can play every defensive line position from right to left. And how do you fight that? I mean, as well as Michael Sam played in the preseason, the other kid played even better to the point they said, we have to keep the other kid.
But I feel what you're saying because the other kid, Westbrook, wasn't a 7th-round pick. I understand and respect that. But what I'm saying to you, Skip, is that, okay, that's yet another dude that's more talented. That's not to knock Michael Sam. That's not to say that he can't play. I'm just saying on this team, as Coach was pointing out, when you talk about it's best for him to go back to the team because he knows the coaches. No, Coach, it's best for him to go where the best opportunity for him to play may be because it ain't St. Louis. Well, these boys are loaded. Well, it's just that simple to me. They are loaded.
I understand that, but I think you're missing the point. What I'm really saying is this. When you look at the preseason, there are 31 other teams. You know the teams that are loaded at certain positions. And you sit there during the preseason when your scouts go scout other teams. They say, hey, you know what? The Rams are loaded with a bunch of defensive linemen. Yeah. They're going to cut a couple guys. Okay? Who will be available out who they cut? We can maybe pick up one of those guys either on our 53, which you can do because you can cut your roster. We used to cut our roster down to 51, actually. So we could bring guys in. We didn't have to worry about practice squad. We say, you know what? Call your agent. You're going to be part of our 53. Okay. Well, no team that has done that yet for Michael Sam. Okay. All right? Or we can bring him on your practice squad. Well, as good as the Rams are, you know they're going to be going there. Scouts are looking at the Rams. They're looking at this front, like Stephen A. said, and they're going, you know, they can't keep all these guys. Well, there's 31 other teams. 700 players actually got cut. 300 will be available to get picked up. He hadn't been picked up yet. So as good as we think he is, well, I'm just saying, as good as we say he's played in the preseason. Right. 31 other teams, I'll say 14 teams have an option right now of picking him up and putting him on the practice squad. They haven't done that. Why?
Coach?
That's the question I got. Why?
Right. Coach, yes, they haven't done. They haven't done that. They haven't done that. Now, the elephant in the room is with this question mark. Did they not pick him up because they're thinking about the distractions that they're perceiving that distractions may come with him, and we all know what kind of distractions we're talking about here. The answer might be yes. That's what they may be thinking about. We can't sit here and look at what we saw this dude do in the preseason and just automatically assume it's strictly football that he's not picked up off waivers.
Coach, distraction is an issue.
You can't pick Michael Sam up off waivers. Well, I'm just saying, I think that some teams are thinking about that. Jeff Fisher, they didn't think about it. The St. Louis Rams may not have think about it, but other teams might.
I agree. But I'm going to say if there's 14 available teams, I'm hoping that our league is bigger than that, and 14 teams aren't saying, well, we don't want to pick this guy up because of the distraction he might bring to our locker room. I'm hoping that's not the truth.
Coach,
I'm hoping 14 teams don't feel that.
You're thinking one of the 14.
I find
Yes.
that
You know what I'm saying, Stephen A?
with all due respect, Coach, with all due respect, that part, not about you, but
Right.
about what you alluded to
Yes.
at the NFL, I find that position laughable. You know why? Because the NFL is ultra sensitive about practically everything. They may have dropped the ball in recent weeks or
Right.
on an item or two, but for the most part, they are highly sensitive about everything. And so to me, if you're talking about anybody else, you're absolutely right. But is it plausible that 14 NFL teams could say, we don't want to touch this because of stuff that doesn't have much to do with football? You're damn right. Absolutely. Because it's the NFL.
Well, then
and that's what they do.
Well, then we're in a
that's
sad,
what they
well,
do.
then we're in a sad position. We're in a sad position.
We've been in a sad thing.
We're in a sad
We've been
position.
saying it. We've been,
I
as great as the league
personally,
is,
I don't
as
think
great
that
as
way.
the league is.
I know enough organizations
Right.
and people that run those organizations that don't feel that way, and I hope I'm right. I'm hoping I'm right. I'm hoping I'm not wrong. And I'm just saying, I've been in the league a long time. I know GMs, I know head coaches that have been in this league a long time, and I'm hoping that all 14 of them, if their 4-3 defenses aren't feeling that way, because if they are, men, we're screwed up. We're screwed up if we feel that way. We really are.
We are.
That's
We are
disappointing.
screwed up,
That's
and the NFL
disappointing.
is one of them. But be clear. It wouldn't be that way if he were a first or second round pick or something like that. That factors in too. Like you said on many occasions, the more talented you are, the closer you are to being a surefire contributor, sure they'll brush that aside. But when you on the bubble, are they going to ask themselves, is it worth it? Absolutely they will. Absolutely they will.
You want to add to this?
I would like to. What is the worst defense in the National Football League right now, we think? I think it's my
Dallas
Dallas
Cowboys.
Cowboys
I think the
defense.
Cowboys.
What was my first thought when I heard that Michael Sam was released? Come on, Dallas, pick him up. Then I
He
read
should
in the
go to
Dallas
Dallas.
Morning News. Nope, they didn't even have him on their draft board. They didn't have him in the first 7 rounds. Didn't think he was big enough. Didn't think he was fast enough. They need right defensive ends instead of left. Like one excuse after another that I read that's coming from inside the Cowboys.
Exactly.
They just, for whatever reason, they're not interested. And I am surprised.
49ers defensive lineman Ray McDonald was arrested on a domestic violence charge early Sunday morning. Officers responded to a home in San Jose, and McDonald was taken into custody without incident. This is just another blow to the 49ers defense. Aldon Smith gone for 9 games. Navarro Bowman out for at least the first 6 games of the season. And now McDonald arrested right after Goodell issued the stiffer penalties for domestic abuse. 49ers GM released the following statement. 49ers organization is aware of the recent reports regarding Ray McDonald, and we take such matters seriously. As we continue to gather the facts, we will reserve further comment.
Truth to come out, you know. Hey, I can't say too much on it right now, but I need the truth to come out. I mean, everybody knows the kind of person I am.
All right, Ray McDonald briefly just saying the truth will come out. In the meantime, though, let's talk about what's going on with the 49ers on the field. How much trouble are they in, Stephen A?
I think they're in a world of trouble. Too many distractions, not enough consistency on the offensive side of the ball. Even though Frank Gore has been considered ultimately reliable, he has gotten up there in age. You wonder how much he has left. Your receiver corps, in terms of the continuity with Colin Kaepernick, is still a question mark. Obviously, the offensive line, people has a lot of faith in them, but Colin Kaepernick needing to develop some accuracy, some cohesion with his wide receivers as well, is a factor in and of itself, which we saw and witnessed during the preseason. When you combine that with Bowman being out, now with Aldon Smith being out, and then this kind of stuff happens, and who knows what's going to come down the pike in terms of a ruling from NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, particularly with the new rules on domestic violence, calling for an automatic 6-game suspension for a first offense and a lifetime ban, arguably, for a second offense. This is just some precarious circumstances that the San Francisco 49ers are dealing with. When you combine all of that with the fact that despite the troubles due to injuries that the Arizona Cardinals have struggled with, they are still a team to be reckoned with. You look at the reigning defending Super Bowl champions led by the Legion of Doom, who haven't had such distractions. You combine that with St. Louis and what their defense is capable of doing for you on the field, and despite the fact that their offense was questionable, they still managed to win 7 games over each of the last 2 seasons. This is not a division where you can afford to have distractions and think it's not going to have a profound impact on your level of productivity. And the fact is that when you look at the San Francisco 49ers right now, with Bowman, with Smith, now with possibly McDonald, with questions in this secondary, with some of the turnovers that have taken place in the last 2 years, it's just a lot to ask Jim Harbaugh to overcome, despite the fact that he's done an exceptional job in guiding them to 3 consecutive NFC Championship games over the last 3 years, including 1 Super Bowl appearance. It's just too much to ask right now. I think the kind of things that's happening with San Francisco, I think this is going to lead to their demise for this particular season.
Oh. Coach.
He makes some good points. I do think they've been hit. They also lost Glenn Dorsey. He's another inside player. So the integrity of this defense has been attacked due to injuries, obviously suspensions, and free agency. Dante Whitner left from the back end.
Yes.
Okay, so you generally build defenses through the middle. And right now they've been attacked there. And are they vulnerable? I know this. All of a sudden now guys that have been backup players or role players are put in a position where they have to play 60 to 70 snaps. You don't know the outcome of that yet. So the flip side of it, what do you have to do? You have to lean more on your offense. And right now, this offense, now this is the preseason, I realize that it's not been hitting on all cylinders right now. They've got some talent over there, but they're going to really have to be the forefront of this football team early. This team last year scored about 25 points a game offensively, which is okay. Defensively, they only gave up 18. That number is going to go up some, especially when you look at who they play. Yeah. And that has a lot to do with how you play. I always say it's not who you play, it's how you play the day you play. Okay, and they start off with the Dallas Cowboys. And we can mock the Dallas Cowboys all we want, but the one thing we do know they can do, they can put points on the board. They averaged about 27 points last year. Okay, they played the Chicago Bears, about 27 points. Yeah. They played the Denver Broncos, 37 points. So Philadelphia Eagles, 27 points. So now all of a sudden, they might be in some games where this defense allows more than 18 or 20 points. Could get into the high 20s. Now you're putting a lot of pressure on your offense to say, you know what? We got to open the envelope up a little bit more and start tossing this thing around because we got to score some points.
I agree with both of you and then some. And yet, before we leave Ray McDonald behind, just a quick thought. Depending on what facts emerge in this case, Ray McDonald could become Roger Goodell's first test case with his new domestic violence punishments.
Right.
And then we will find out, as I brought up the other day, if Roger Goodell's actions speak as loudly as his words did last week. So just a thought.
Sure.
Okay. But now back to the football field. I'm surprised Stephen A. Smith has jumped, I think, completely off the bandwagon. Is that what I just heard? Because you've been driving that bandwagon for a long time. You were off the bandwagon, both feet off on the ground, right?
I'm very, very worried, Skip. I'm just very worried I don't have the same faith. I mean, that's all I could say at this moment. By the time we make our predictions Wednesday and Friday, or actually Friday, I may be completely off the bandwagon. I'm leaning in that direction. I'll admit that.
Go ahead and get off, because ain't nothing going to change between now and Friday.
Ain't nobody getting healthy.
I'm with you, Coach. And Stephen A., now all of the pressure falls back on a Colin Kaepernick, who, to me, through the preseason was going RG3, as in, where are you, Cap? Well, who are you? What happened to you? What about that guy 2 years ago that we loved, who carried the 49ers all the way to the Super Bowl? Down the stretch last year, we didn't see enough of that guy. We saw it in Green Bay, for sure, but then now in the preseason, 3 times we saw Colin Kaepernick in the first-team offense. We didn't see a flash of what we used to see from the 49er offense. So I'm saying, man, this is starting to look like, in a tough division, a pretty ordinary football team. With all those losses you guys detailed on defense, I love the head coach. I believe in the head coach. I like the quarterback, but I do need to see a little more of him this year, and certainly more than I saw in the preseason. So I'm saying that with the schedule they play, when you have to go to the Broncos and go to the Saints and obviously go to the Seahawks again in your division, and with St. Louis without Bradford still a threat, and Arizona with in and out Carson Palmer still a huge threat, it's going to be tough, man. This is going to be a rough ride for those 49ers, Stephen A. And they could get heck, at this point they've had so many losses, there's a threat that they could lose the opener in Dallas. Isn't there a threat? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'm not. Well, if obviously if the defense can't hold up now, they can help their defense because they still have the ability to run the football, and that keeps your defense off the field. That can keep the game down. But all of a sudden, if the Cowboys find a way to get up a couple scores,
that'd be
now
tough.
The game plan of running the ball, it's out the window. And now you got to throw it. And that's kind of important. I think what they'll do, they'll lean more on Cap's legs than maybe his arm. And create some things where he can get on the edge and give him the option of maybe if it's not open, go ahead and run and go make some big plays with your legs. But right now, this team, I still think they're a playoff team. They're good enough. Oh, yeah. They're good enough. Yeah, they're good enough. They'll find a way.
To get to the playoffs.
Yeah, they'll find
But they won't be at the championship game.
Well, I don't know that. I don't even want to get into that yet. But I don't discount them and say, well, they're only going to win 9 games or 8 games. They're better than that. But it'll be interesting.
All right. Stephen A., you want to add anything before we get out of here? And Coach says goodbye and finishes his long work day.
You've got Bolden, you've got Crabtree, you've got Davis, you've got Colin Kaepernick, you've got Frank Gore. You can't just summarily dismiss them and act like these guys are not capable of getting it done. All I'm saying is that clearly San Francisco's defense is what is known to carry this team. And it seems like all the hits they're taking is on the defensive side of the ball. They lose that prowess, they're just another team. They're not contenders like we've been watching over the last 3 years.
Jameis Winston had an up-and-down game at Florida State in that Florida State win over Oklahoma State, while Alabama, Oregon, and UCLA got wins among the schools in the top 10. South Carolina was the only team in the top 10 to fall. Stephen A., you watched college football this weekend. What did you learn?
Well, number one, that there's no runaway. If we're going to go by the first weekend, Skip, let's break this down. I don't want to talk about Oklahoma. As far as I'm concerned, they had a bye week. That's how I viewed it in terms of their romp. I think the same about Oregon. I look at a team like Alabama. Defensively, I saw some holes. West Virginia was able to exploit them to some degree. But ultimately, playing Blake Sims kind of surprised me because I expected to see Coker, but that didn't happen. Kept Sims in the game. Nick Saban kept Sims in the game. He did relatively well, I guess. When you look at that and you look at Amari Cooper, who had 12 receptions for 130 yards, you look at Yeldon, they clearly have the pieces in place in terms of receivers and at the running back position to make some noise. It's all going to be about quarterback play in Sims and Coker. And since we don't know what we're going to get from either one of those guys, Skip, I'm not sure exactly how any of those guys are going to do. When I look at Florida State, Jameis Winston never threw 2 interceptions in a quarter, definitely did that this week, and that was clearly an aberration. But you look at a guy like Rashad Green, 11 receptions, 203 yards. He was relatively impressive, but I thought that Jameis Winston, I don't know if it was him. I don't know if it was lackadaisical. I don't know if it was Florida State taking that national championship for granted and thinking they could rest on their laurels or whatever the case may be. I'm not sure, but Oklahoma State ended up giving them a far better game than I had anticipated. They're a relatively inexperienced and young squad, but J.W. Walsh and those boys played well. A lot of the competitiveness. They went after them. They didn't give up. They didn't fold, even though being down by 17 points. They came at the national champions, made it a very, very interesting game, which surprised me on to some degree about Florida State. But again, at the same time, take away those 2 turnovers by Winston, it might have been a blowout. I just look at it and I say to myself, national title is up for grabs. Alabama, Florida State, Oregon, and those boys, Oklahoma's up for grabs.
I didn't learn anything that I thought I already knew. I didn't change my opinion on anybody. I do not think Florida State is overrated. I do think Oklahoma State is underrated. You said you don't want to talk about Oklahoma, which is fine with me, but Oklahoma State's got a bunch of athletes, man. I mean, every time I looked up, I saw another athlete make another play. And could we see that real quick? If J.W. Walsh doesn't decide as he gets flipped to go down with the football and give up the football so he could put his 2 hands down to save himself, we might be having a different conversation here, Stephen A., because that was the play of the game. J.W. Walsh decided not to hold on to the football to save himself. Now, again, maybe if you or I were in that position, about to break our neck, we'd let go of the football, too, to put both hands down to break our fall. But my point is, they were in position to win the game. Now I'm back to my age-old position, which is, why doesn't the NCAA allow these top teams at least one preseason game or preseason scrimmage against another team just as a dress rehearsal?
I agree.
Just come on. Like if you're going to put this product on our TV screens on Saturday, at least give us the right product, because you don't know what these teams are going to do in their first game. They can't practice all their kicking team stuff. Everything's crazy. And they throw them into Jerry World, like on a big national stage, and they've played zero preseason football. What would we say about the NFL if they eliminated every preseason game? We'd say, well, the product you're going to give us on opening weekend will be tainted. Well, so could this one. So I'm not going to overreact about Alabama hitting and missing with Blake Sims. I'm with you. I wasn't impressed. I wasn't sold. I'd like to see Coker get a shot. He probably will get a shot. But with Florida State, you're right. They were in position in the second quarter to blow the game open. And Jameis uncharacteristically made two big errors that got Oklahoma State not only back in the game, but feeling like they could compete on a national stage. And all of a sudden, Florida State's, we might be in some trouble. But with Jameis, what I always love about Jameis, when it's time to make the play, Jameis makes the play. And I'm going to trust they're going to win all their games this year because of that.
All right, well said. Let's leave it there. I want to hear from our viewers. Go quickly, Stephen A. We gotta do an interview. You want to add something?
I was just gonna say I was excited. They're not in the top 5, but I was excited to see how Gurley performed against Clemson for Georgia.
He was the best player in college football, at least for the first week.
We want to know what you at home think about the first weekend of college football being back. So send us your conversations on Twitter using the hashtag CFB Week 1. Again, that's CFB Week 1. We got an interview right now, ladies and gentlemen. We'll do a hard switch here. Last time he was on the show, he made some news for some comments he made. We are talking about Seattle linebacker Bobby Wagner. Bobby, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. Last time you were here, I said you made a little news. So what we're about to do is listen to what you said, and then I'm going to ask you to comment on it, okay? Let's listen.
Okay.
I saw a bunch of dudes that looked petrified on the field against y'all in that Super Bowl. They looked straight up scared.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. You look at
so they were scared.
They look scared out there. Nobody wants to catch the ball. Nobody wants to come across the middle.
So is there anybody who does play you that doesn't seem scared?
It is people, but nobody comes to mind nobody comes to mind.
Later on that evening, I actually had a chance to catch up with Richard Sherman, Bobby. He said you're always very honest and you keep it 100%. So answer this question right now at this moment. Is there anyone in the league, in your opinion, that is your biggest threat or your competition, perhaps?
I think our biggest threat right now is just ourselves. I think we always compete with ourselves, and we understand that if we do what we have to do to get the job done, there's no team that we feel can beat us. So I think, our competition throughout the league is going to be ourselves. We got to make sure we don't do the things to hurt ourselves so we can win some ball games.
Bobby, I'm looking at this right now, and I'm imagining the things that you're seeing transpire in Arizona, San Francisco. Obviously, don't even try to tell me you guys are worried about St. Louis with that offense. I'm sitting there wondering whether or not things have gotten a bit more comfortable for y'all, because even as Super Bowl champions, you got to look at your division first, and seeing some of the things that have happened to the other teams in your division, I imagine that y'all have this mentality, damn, it's looking a bit easier than we expected. Your thoughts on that?
Nah, I definitely don't think it's going to be an easy road, because, I think we understand that no matter who we play, when we come on the field, they're going to give us their best shot. So whether they down some guys, whether they got all their players, we're going to come out there and they're going to want to, defeat the Super Bowl champions. So, we understand that. We understand that we're going to get everybody best shot, and we're going to give everybody our best shot.
Bobby, we've talked here recently on the show about a couple of Super Bowl simulations that people have run that make the Denver Broncos prohibitive favorites to win this year's Super Bowl. I don't understand it. Can you please explain that to me?
I don't understand it either. I feel like, you have to take the championship from us before you become a favorite. So, I think we just focus on ourselves and understand that as long as we do what we got to do, we're going to be right where we want to be.
Stephen A.
And where's that? And I'm asking that question. I mean, I know obviously you guys are on a mission to defend your crown, but what do you believe to be the biggest potential impediment to y'all repeating as champions right now? As you look around the league, as you look at yourself, what's the number one concern that you have, Bobby?
I think, we just got to make sure we don't do nothing to shoot ourselves in the foot. If you look at years past, sometimes teams after winning, they get too high and expect that they're going to be in the same position that they were last year. So as long as, we remain humble and, just do the things that, we normally do and come out there and make plays and be the defense that we know we can be and be the offense that we know we can be, we know there's not nobody that can mess with us.
Bobby, when we had you on out in Los Angeles, we also had on your ex-teammate Michael Robinson, now recently retired from the Seattle Seahawks. And he made the case that you're going to, you can say it's self-serving, but that you're going to miss the sort of veteran leadership of a Michael Robinson, a Chris Clemens, a Red Bryant, maybe even miss their pass rush a little bit to the point that Michael thought you might have a hard time getting back to the Super Bowl. Give us your take on the locker room if you feel like new leaders are emerging or if you will miss those guys.
We definitely going to miss those guys because they brought a lot to our team. But we feel like we got a lot of new guys stepping up and a lot of, there's a lot of opportunities for guys to step up and be leaders. And I think we've done that. Cam has done a great job of being more vocal and being a leader as well as as well as Earl. And, I think we just got a bunch of, like I said, our team's young, so we still growing into the leadership roles that we can be. But, we still a close-knit group and we have fun out there while we playing. And, we're excited for this opportunity, this challenge coming up for the season and the Green Bay Packers.
It's interesting, Bobby. Every time somebody talks about the Seahawks, they talk about the defense. They talk about the Legion of Boom. The defense is the signature. We all know that. Very little was made of the offense, but they dropped 43 points on the Denver Broncos, the petrified Denver Broncos, in the Super Bowl. I'm wondering what has practice been like against that offense this year during training camp and obviously during the whole preseason. What has it been like for you guys going up against your offense? Is it any difference compared to what you saw last year from them before you actually won the Super Bowl?
It's been intense. We had some real good battles out there. I feel everybody on the offensive side has grown. And you got to, look at the weapons. You got Russell, you got Percy, you got Curse, you still got Marshawn back there. So we still got a bunch of weapons back there. And, I think they're gelling a lot better this year. And, I'm excited to see the damage that they're going to do across the league this year because, everybody – I feel, in my opinion, everybody's gotten better from the offensive side to the defensive side. So, when everybody gets better, it's a scary sight.
All right, we leave it there. Bobby Wagner, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good one. Good luck this season.
Appreciate you guys for having me.
Will Jimmy Johnson ever be in the Ring of Honor while you're the owner?
I don't have plans for Jimmy to be in the Ring of Honor. The criteria that I'm interested in have more to the guys that were on the field and making the plays.
But in fact, both former coach...
All right, so Jimmy Johnson responded, actually. He told a columnist, Bob West of the Port Arthur News, in an email about the particular piece about Jerry. He says, quote, "About like I expected, Jerry comes across as a rich expletive." Here's the question. Should Jerry put Jimmy in the Cowboys Ring of Honor? Skip.
Stephen A. Smith, the answer is a big no. I support Jerry Jones in his ongoing decision to keep Jimmy Johnson out of the Cowboys Ring of Honor. Now, before we proceed, I want to point out to our viewers, many, many times recently on this show, I have criticized Jerry Jones. I think he's become a caricature of himself, and lately has become at least as interested in entertaining fans as in winning football games. Now, what we're talking about happened back in the early 90s when, as I've told you before, I do believe that Jerry Jones deserves some credit for building that early 90s Cowboys dynasty, the first two Super Bowls, obviously coached by Jimmy Johnson. I wrote an entire book about the 1992 breakthrough, the first Super Bowl season, a book that I started to research at the first of that year. And Stephen A., I got to tell you, so many insiders told me that Jimmy Johnson repeatedly humiliated and embarrassed Jerry Jones in front of staffers, in front of assistant coaches, in front of football players, to the point that many of the insiders couldn't understand how Jerry lasted as long as he did with Jimmy Johnson. I wrote that in the book, and I concluded in my last chapter that these two wouldn't last long together, even after the first Super Bowl. I took hellacious criticism in Dallas, Texas, and in Cowboy Nation for concluding that in the book. And as you well know, one more season passed. They won a second Super Bowl together at a little gathering of Cowboy coaches at the league meetings in Tampa. Once again, Jimmy shamed Jerry in front of the assistant coaches. And at that point, Jerry stormed back to the hotel and decided he'd had enough, and I did not blame him. And he fired the two-time Super Bowl winning coach that was Jimmy Johnson. So I saw so much, I heard so much, I wrote about so much. I just can't see how Jerry Jones should ever get over it and get past that, because they were supposedly friends. They played together at the University of Arkansas. And remember, Jerry Jones fired Tom Landry, fairly gutsy move, to hire Jimmy Johnson and bring him from the University of Miami to Dallas to coach the Dallas Cowboys in 1989. So my point is, I give Jerry some credit for the moves that he made, and we can talk about those in just a minute. But my point is, I do not blame him for never forgiving Jimmy for the way he treated Jerry in those Super Bowl years.
Skip Bayless, I am known for excoriating the Dallas Cowboys, mocking them, humiliating them, making fun of them because it's just a star in the helmet and all of that other stuff. But in all actuality, I am truly just playing around and having fun being a hater of, quote-unquote, America's team because I'm a native New Yorker. That's all that's about. It's never anything personal. It's all in fun. As individuals, I respect all of them as professionals, and I sincerely wish them well, because when the Dallas Cowboys are great, the NFL is better for it. But let me be very, very clear. I'm incredibly serious when I say this. I don't think I've ever disagreed with you more about a point that you've made as it pertains to these guys than I do right now. Being in the Ring of Honor is not about Jerry Jones. It's about what you were as a Cowboy and what you accomplished to the Cowboy fans locally, across the nation, and across the globe. Jimmy Johnson is a two-time Super Bowl champion for the Dallas Cowboys. You don't have to bring up anything that Jerry Jones has done. I concur. I agree with you. Charles Haley would have never been there if it wasn't for Jimmy Johnson, along with a plethora.
No, Jerry Jones.
I'm sorry, for Jerry Jones. For Jerry Jones, along with a plethora of other players. Jerry Jones had something to do with that. We concede it. We recognize it. We understand it. But Jerry Jones didn't go out there and fire Tom Landry for some no-name. He fired Tom Landry to bring in a dude that was winning national championships at the University of Miami, that had established himself as a great coach on the collegiate level, brought him in there, gave him a moribund franchise to rebuild, and from the ground up, they started 1-15. They went from 1-15 to 7-9. The last 3 years Jimmy Johnson was there, 11-5, 13-3, 12-4, back-to-back Super Bowl championships his last 2 years. Your personal animus towards him should not take away from that. And that's the problem that we have. And it's not just with Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. It's not just in the NFL. It's wherever you look. It's even in the media to this day and age. Skip, I can despise somebody. I can't ignore what you've done. I can't ignore what you've accomplished. Your record is your record. I may not like you, but I'm not honoring you because I like you. There are people that Jerry Jones loves that will never be in the Ring of Honor. You know why? Because they didn't deserve it. And he loves them. But their record, their stats, their numbers, their level of production doesn't warrant them being in the Ring of Honor, even if he loved them. So why, because you dislike somebody, should it disqualify them from the Ring of Honor? If Jimmy Johnson is a champion, then he's a champion. And nothing should be able to take away from that. Nothing should be able to take away from somebody who exhibits a level of excellence. We have to get beyond allowing or okaying personal animus to interfere with professional judgment. Professional judgment mandates that Jimmy Johnson was an elite coach in the NFL. And if he was an elite coach in the NFL, somebody worthy of Hall of Fame credentials, etc., how in God's name is he not worthy of being in the Ring of Honor for a franchise he delivered 2 Super Bowls to some degree, was responsible for that third, even though it was with Barry Switzer. And since that time, they haven't won but one playoff game in 17 years. If anything, that, just as much as the Super Bowl, validates what Jimmy Johnson meant to this franchise. It's disgraceful that Jerry Jones, a grown man, would be this petty.
What did Jimmy do when he went on to coach the Dolphins? Help me out. Did he win multiple Super Bowls?
He didn't do well.
Okay, thank you.
He didn't do well.
So I can turn the argument back on you that you're turning on Jerry. Okay, they were pretty good together.
What would that argument be?
Well, what would
that argument be, Skip?
Why didn't he immediately build a dynasty with the Miami Dolphins?
Hold on.
No, I'm not holding on. I'm right there. I'm right here.
Hold on.
I'm not going anywhere.
Did Jerry Jones... Well, I'm trying to hear you because we're remote, Skip. We're remote. So I'm trying... I couldn't hear you.
Your opinions are
remote. My point is...
For me.
Really? Well, that's fine. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is this. Did Jerry Jones coach the Cowboys? Yes or no?
No. Was he the general manager? Yes.
Do you believe that an NFL team can win without a coach? Yes or no?
Well, obviously not.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, therefore, Jimmy Johnson did his job. He did his job, Skip.
Okay.
He did his job.
Okay.
And all you're saying to me is that he doesn't deserve it because he insulted Jerry Jones. I'm saying to you that should be enough to keep him out of the Ring of Honor.
You're not getting me. And I can't give you my entire book in 4 or 5 minutes of television. This was repeated, vicious, verbal abuse, day after day after day. Jimmy, and I know him very well, and I love him, and I want him to be my coach. But he got nasty with Jerry Jones because he resented the fact that they were teammates at Arkansas. And remember, or do not forget the fact, Jerry Jones was a starter on a national championship team. So he knew a little bit about football. He knew enough to be a college football player at a pretty high level, I think we would have to say. But Jimmy resented that Jerry went off and made millions in the oil fields after he went bust a couple times, while Jimmy had to fight his way up the ladder, coaching high school football, then lower college football, then college football. He fought all the way up to this position, and he wanted Jerry to get zero credit when he knew full well that the catalyst for the '92 Super Bowl team was Charles Haley. Jimmy didn't want Charles Haley, and Jerry engineered the trade and forced it on Jimmy and the coaching staff. We got to coach that guy that San Francisco didn't want, and what happened? He put them over the top to 2 Super Bowls. Jerry deserves some credit for putting up with all the verbal abuse, the nasty, embarrassing, humiliating scenarios that he had to go through day after day. I know you.
That's fine, Skip. Go ahead.
I know me what? If you had been in Jerry Jones' shoes, you would never forget it. You would just say, that guy is off my list.
You're right. No. Whoa. No. You do know me. You absolutely do know me. But you also know this about me, Skip. I can despise you and still recognize what you've done. That's the issue here.
Okay.
Nobody's asking Jerry Jones. Nobody's asking Jerry Jones. Go and read your book. Nobody is disputing what you're saying, and nobody is asking Jerry Jones to forget it. What we're saying is we can't have a Ring of Honor that is determined by who Jerry Jones likes. Hey. Cowboy Nation makes that call.
Hey.
Cowboy Nation sits there and says, look, these are the great players. You don't get to ignore them because you don't like them. You can't do that.
Remember,
that's wrong.
For years and years, Tex Schramm ran the Dallas Cowboys, and because of personal vendettas over negotiations that were protracted with a Leroy Jordan or a couple other Cowboys that came later, he would keep them out of the Ring of Honor. Jerry is the owner of the Cowboys. It's his Ring of Honor. So Again, we're not talking about the Hall of Fame here.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Personal
plays.
I didn't understand. Hold on. I stand corrected. I didn't understand. I thought it was the Cowboys Ring of Honor. I had no idea that it's Jerry Jones Ring of Honor.
Right
In
now,
other words,
he owns
the
it.
hell with what the hold on. The hell with what the Cowboys fans thinks across the globe, America's team. The hell with whoever accomplished Super Bowl championships. The hell with everything. Oh no! If Jerry Jones doesn't like you. It doesn't matter if you won 5 rings. It doesn't matter if you were Joe Montana. You could be Troy Aikman. You delivered 3 Super Bowls. You're the playmaker, Michael Irvin. You helped deliver. Emmitt Smith. You helped earn it. Jerry Jones doesn't like you. So now, even though the playmaker and Emmitt Smith, the Hall of Famers, no, Jerry Jones doesn't like you, so you can't go up in the Ring of Honor.
But there's only one of those.
That's what you're telling me.
There's only one of those, and it's the close friend who betrayed him constantly after they won their first Super Бол together. That's the guy.
I asked you a question. If the playmaker and Emmitt Smith were not, if Jerry Jones despised them, you trying to tell me he could justify keeping them out of the Ring of Honor?
Sure he could, but he doesn't despise either one of them. He loves all of them.
That's disgraceful. I'm saying that's disgraceful. You don't have a problem with that?
No.
You don't have a problem with that?
Not at all. But it's only happened one time
me and you.
with one guy. I witnessed it personally. I saw it. I know I wouldn't be able to live with it. So why would I want to put that? Why would I want to have to honor that man? You realize Jerry would have to go on the field and hug Jimmy and put up a big act about, we're bringing Jimmy into the fold. Baloney. And I don't think Jimmy would go along with it either.
No. These rings, these 2 rings that we have here, this man is one of the great coaches. I don't have to talk to him. I don't have to go out to dinner with him. I don't have to deal with him. But for the sake of Cowboy Nation, this
what do you care about Cowboy Nation?
Bring. It's not a matter of caring. We're talking about it.
Oh, now
this
you
man
love it.
helped me deliver
now you
2
got their
rings. I can't ignore that. I'm glad you acknowledged it. No wonder I can't stand the Cowboys. So it's all about your personal feelings. It ain't about production. It ain't about production. It's about your personal feelings. I thank you, Skip. Thank you.
For
now
one
we
guy.
know.
And it's not a
Now
matter of he doesn't like that guy.
Right.
He despises that guy. You know what?
It's okay. It's okay. He despises.
It's good being king.
Personal feelings.
If you own the team, you can do whatever you want to. And you know what? Everyone in Cowboy Nation, everyone has the right not to watch the Dallas Cowboys this year. Am I right?
Yeah,
you could
watch it.
And if you think
we'll watch.
If you think that Jerry should put Jimmy in, you could just say, I'm not watching, I'm out.
Losers.
You can say you're out.
No wonder they're losers.
No wonder they lead the league in TV ratings every year.
No wonder they can't get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I love it.
Because they stink.
I love this discussion.
Because they're petty.
We got a producer saying we have to wrap. I want us to do it forever.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
The Boston Red Sox have won the World Series.
The new college football playoff.
The Seminoles have completed the perfect season.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
All right, after being traded to the Chiefs last year, you remember this, and leading them to the playoffs, it looks like Alex Smith's successful first season in Kansas City has paid off. According to ESPN sources, the quarterback has agreed to a 4-year extension worth $68 million, 45 of that guaranteed. It's a deal that will keep him in Kansas City through the 2018 season. $68 million, 45 of that guaranteed, Stephen A. Is he worth it?
He's worth it. You know, we ridiculed him in the past to some degree about being a game manager or what have you, but the fact of the matter is over the last 3 years, he's won 76% of his games. When he's in a lineup behind center, he may not do the game or commit the game-changing plays or whatever the case may be to deliver the goods, but he certainly doesn't facilitate you losing. That's the truth. The Kansas City Chiefs had a turnaround last year, although it was deemed as fraudulent in some people's eyes. They were like the worst 9-0 team you could find in a lot of people's eyes. It had a lot to do with him being there. And when you consider the fact that he was in San Francisco trying to prove himself, different head coaches, different offensive coordinators, then he gets to Kansas City. He has the year that he has. And then you consider the Jay Cutlers of the world, the Tony Romos of the world, the Joe Flaccos of the world and others, and the kind of contracts that they signed for him to get $45 million in guaranteed money. He is well worth it, Skip. They were tied for 24th in passing efficiency. Obviously, that's an indictment against him. We understand that. But in the end, when he's behind center, he manages to win football games. And last time I checked, that's what matters most. So if he gets $45 million in guaranteed dollars because of that, considering what other quarterbacks who have not won have been getting, I'm going to give credit where credit is due and surmise that he deserves those dollars.
I disagree. You make a good case. I respect Alex Smith. I think he's pretty good, and he's consistently pretty good, which is exactly why, just me, I would rather have Tony Romo or Jay Cutler as my quarterback because my ceiling would be a little higher with those two. Greater things could happen than would happen with Alex Smith. And now you've committed to him for the next 5 years. Not a ton of guaranteed money, not the Romo Cutler kind of guarantee or Flacco guarantee that you point out, but still $45 million, you're going forward with this man. And Andy Reid loves him because he is so coachable. He is the ultimate game manager. He is the ultimate coach's extension on the field. Andy Reid knows that what Andy calls is probably going to get run, and it'll get run pretty well. But will it be run very well? Will he make the play that changes the game on the road in Indianapolis? You remember they're up 38-10, and the ceiling literally fell in on them. They lost Jamal Charles. They lost Niall Davis.
Yep.
They lost both the bookend stud defensive ends. And then all of a sudden, it's down to Alex Smith has to make one last play. And his numbers for the game were sensational. 30 of 46, 65% of his passes, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. One last play. Alex, he's not that guy, which is why, in the end, this would be a really tough decision. This is like rock and a hard place decision. I would try to go a different direction, but that's just me. I know that Andy Reid thinks that this is the perfect guy for him, and I cannot condemn that. So because of that, and if they're going to go forward with Andy Reid, then God bless, that's the perfect guy for you. But for me, I want my ceiling to be higher than Alex Smith's ceiling. And remember, last year, as well as he played, his QBR, taking in all the considerations, all the different factors, was middle of the pack. Because in the end, he's pretty much middle of the pack.
Well, Skip, not to echo your repeated sentiments throughout the days, but back to the question. Does he deserve it? And the reason why I say the answer is yes, and I emphatically disagree with you, is because if you think Jay Cutler and Tony Romo deserve it, last time I checked, your ceiling isn't the only thing that determines your worth. It's also your level of production that you've put forth thus far. If it's just about the ceiling, I feel you. But you don't get to ignore the level of production you've actually put forth throughout the years. This dude passed for 3,300 yards last season. He had 23 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions. Whether it's with a Dwyane Wade, whether it's with an Avery, these are not flat-out knock your socks off type of receivers, even though they've had their moments. You've got a tight end in Fasano. You got to hope that he continues to produce. You look at Jamal Charles. He's running the football effectively. He's a fantasy football maven. But at the same time, is he going to be that dude that you can continue to rely upon? The answer is probably yes. But when you look at the pieces that they have in place, also the system because of the coach that they have in place, plus his level of production, even when he was in San Francisco, the ceiling was why Colin Kaepernick ended up getting the job.
Yep.
But the level of production that Alex Smith was putting forth under Harbaugh wasn't bad at all. And so as a result of it, it's about who you've got available. And I'm looking at it from the standpoint that if Romo and Cutler and people like that can get money and their production hasn't measured up to that of Alex Smith. Why should they be able to get more, even though they're still getting more? Because remember, we're almost $10 million more in guaranteed dollars. Cutler's approximately that in guaranteed dollars. Mm-hmm. Alex Smith is only at 45.
I know.
But his level of production is greater.
Yeah, I get it.
So I'm like, listen, he deserves it. He deserves it.
Of Alex Smith, his general manager said he's brought stability to that team. That's why he deserves the money. Did you want to add anything to that, Skip?
Yeah, it could turn into like 8-8 kind of stability. And I know Romo's only 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. But again, Alex Smith doesn't have Romo's talent. He doesn't have Cutler's talent. But we'll see. I'm not sure that sure the Chiefs are going to match what they did last year.
But I don't believe they will either, Skip. And Bomani Jones tweeted he may very well be the third best quarterback in his own division. And he has a point. But the reality is that he has produced. He doesn't have back problems. And last time we checked, Alex Smith was working out, was in training camp, then was in preseason ready to start the season. He wasn't at Duke University at Cameron Indoor Stadium shooting jump shots and chilling at an NCAA basketball game. Let's keep that in mind. Just a thought.
Heck, I may be making a case in about 8 games that he's the 4th best quarterback in his division, from what I saw from Derek Carr the other night. But that's a whole other issue.
We leave it
or
there.
It might be number 2.
9.5-foot bronze statue of one Robert Griffin III was unveiled. RG3 is Baylor's only Heisman Trophy winner, and he has now been immortalized on campus. Here's what Baylor President Ken Starr had to say during the dedication ceremony. If you go to Washington, D.C., before you go watch the Redskins and Robert, you go see Mr. Lincoln. That's a great statue. If you're going to go to New York City, go see the Statue of Liberty. When you come to Waco, you're going to see the statue of Judge Baylor, Coach Grant Taft, and Robert Griffin III. RG3 tweeted the following: so honored. All family, all friends, all teammates, and Baylor Nation. Hashtag this is for us. Right? He's immortalized. There's a statue, Skip Bayless. Here's the question. Does this put more pressure on RG3 this year in the NFL?
You bet it does. And by the way, before we leave the quote behind, that quote was scaring me to death, Stephen A., until I finally got to the end of it. And at least he said, well, he listed Robert's statue at Baylor behind Judge Baylor, the founder of the university, right. Grant Taft, great longtime Baylor coach, whom I know very well. And then, of course, RG3's statue, at least it was third in line, because I feared that he was going to compare that statue to the Lincoln Memorial or to the Statue of Liberty. It's like, oh, my God. But back to the question. Yes, it's going to add even more pressure onto RG3's shoulders as the regular season opener approaches at Houston this Sunday. But, Stephen A., I can't blame Robert for this pressure. It's just that the timing of this is terrible. Sure, eyebrows will rise because it's all over ESPN that Robert's statue, 9.5 feet tall, was unveiled. But did Robert ask for the statue? No, he didn't ask for it. You and I have disagreed over whether anybody should have a statue, and I respect your opinion on this. You don't think any human should be deified with the statue. I'm fine with that. I get it. But Robert did win the Heisman Trophy, the first ever at Baylor, and he did help turn that program around. And trust me, as they opened their new stadium last night, those people felt honored and extremely happy to pass that bronze statue of Robert Griffin III because they know how much he meant to that program, and they hope will continue to mean to that program. Now, have we seen any flashes of the Rookie of the Year, Robert Griffin III, this preseason? Unfortunately, maybe a couple, but not many, if any. So around locker rooms in the NFL, they're going to be raising their eyebrows saying, oh, so you got a statue now. Houston Texans locker room, oh, he's got a statue now. Wonder if he'll be a statue in the pocket on Sunday afternoon in Reliant Stadium. It just doesn't help his cause in his case right now. I'm sorry for the timing of it, but I can't condemn Robert for sort of egging this one on the way he did with his off-season rehabilitation as we approached last year's regular season and all this spat with Mike Shanahan. We can go on and on about that, but this time I'm okay with the statue, but the timing is terrible for Robert.
I completely agree with you, Skip. I don't think I can disagree with a single word you uttered because it's not his fault. You are absolutely right. I don't think that any human being should be deified. I don't like statues of any human being, but I do understand where Bayless is coming from. He's their only Heisman Trophy winner. He led them to 10 games. He won the Heisman Trophy. He had a spectacular season. He was the #2 overall pick in the draft. And more importantly, the money that they raised, the donations that were pouring in order for this stadium to ultimately be finalized and built, was due in large part because of the kind of season that he had a few years back and the kind of attention that he assisted in bringing to the university in Waco, Texas. So when you take all of those things into consideration, there's no doubt that we understand what Baylor is thinking and why they came to that conclusion. I don't have anything against RG3 in this particular instance or anything involving the statue other than the fact that I don't think any human being should be deified on that level. But at the same time, let's be clear about something here. There's an immense amount of pressure that he's going to receive because I can assure you the people that I know in the nation's capital, they're like, look, we appreciate all that stuff, but you damn sure don't deserve a statue based on what you've done here. And we're waiting to see that. You have Alfred Morris. You have a decent offensive line. You've got Jordan Reed coming back. You acquired Deshaun Jackson. You still have Pierre Garçon. You've got Santana Moss. You got a new coach. The owner loves you. Everything is right there for you. There is no excuse for you not to be that dude that we saw balling your rookie season. So in light of that fact, again, the timing, like you said, is unfortunate, but it's reality because people in Baylor, at Baylor, appreciate what he did. Yeah. People in the nation's capital don't give 2 cents about it. They want to see what you're going to do at FedEx Field. They want to see what you're going to do at FedEx Field. And he better show up this year. That's the mandate.
I am with you. Robert Griffin III has no more excuses. All the pieces are in place. Jay Gruden is in place, and we know that Jay Gruden did really nice things with Andy Dalton in Cincinnati. I think Jay Gruden is very good with quarterbacks. However good Robert can be this year, I think Jay Gruden will help him be whatever good he can be. Now it's up to Robert. And I can make a case that because Robert was the Rookie of the Year, he did fall apart with Mike Shanahan, and then he fell on his face last year, all through the regular season, hit rock bottom, that the spotlight might be the brightest on Robert of all the players in the league this year. Does anybody, I don't know what pressure he personally feels, but is there any more pressure on any single player in the league than on Robert Griffin III this year?
No.
Bigger spotlight?
You know what? You know what? I don't know. I would venture to say no, there is, Skip, but it's not just because of RG3. It's because of the division that he's playing in. The Cowboys are expected to have the worst defense in the league. The Giants seem to be a shell of itself. And while the Philadelphia Eagles appear to be an offensive juggernaut, there's still questions about them on the defensive side of the ball. And now Haslett has been unleashed since he no longer has to work for Shanahan, holding him back and allowing his defense to play timid. He's been unleashed by Jay Gruden, which means that you expect the defense to be significantly upgraded. So that puts it all on RG3. Because if the Redskins don't do anything, the likelihood is that it's going to be because their offense didn't get it done.
That's right. So is the NFC East winnable for the Washington Redskins this year? Sure it is. And as Robert,
but I'm still, it is.
Yeah, but as Robert is the first to say, we go as I go.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a lot
here
of pressure.
You go.
You're right. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. Speaking of Stephen A. saying that they appreciate him at Baylor, listen to this, guys. They chanted RG3 for more than 3 hours during the pre-ceremony. And during the dedication, former President George W. Bush was on hand. They immortalized that young man. And he just simply responded by saying, wow, I appreciate it. According to ESPN.com, the Cavs aren't the only team trying to lure Ray Allen away from the Miami Heat. The Spurs and the Clippers are the latest 2 teams to join the race to sign Ray Allen. Chris Broussard reported last month that, guess what, Ray Allen, he's returning for his 19th season. He's getting up there, Stephen A. Where do you see the best fit for him?
Well, right now it's a tough sell. I think it's between Cleveland. It's 3 teams. It's Cleveland, San Antonio, and the Clippers. The Clippers, I would say, is third on the list because even though Doc Rivers, his former coach in Boston, where he helped win the title in 2008, is the coach, if you remember, that was the first sign where Ray Allen ultimately left Boston to go to Miami because he felt like Doc Rivers was going in a different direction with Avery Bradley. And so that's something that Ray Allen hasn't forgotten, even though they still have a pretty decent relationship. The Spurs, obviously, professionals, consummate professionals and champions. That would be of interest to him. But at the same time, the Ray Allen that I've known for a decade, he's tired of those training camps, Skip. He doesn't want to find himself in a situation where he's got to go through training camp and all that stuff. He's 39 years of age. He's approaching 40. He's tried and tested and proven, and he's not trying to, he takes care of himself and he's in shape, but he's not trying to wear himself down any more than necessary. And I think the ideal scenario for him would be Cleveland because of his relationship with LeBron and how much they would need him, because he wants to play, but he doesn't want to be ran into the ground either. So even though Popovich is exceptional at saving his players, and that's something that Ray Allen is cognizant of, which makes San Antonio very attractive for him, in the end, I would say Cleveland and then San Antonio rather than it being the other way around because of his relationship with LeBron. But that's just a guesstimate right now because he doesn't know.
Which team would give him the best chance to win a ring next year? Next year. Go out
San
with
Antonio.
the ring. Thank you.
San Antonio.
Which is why he belongs, Ray Allen, in San Antonio. He stole one championship from the Spurs. Now he owes them, helping them win a second straight championship. He turned 39 on July 20th. Why not go out with a big bang with the Spurs? And Stephen A., I ask you, and again, I respect Ray's relationship with LeBron, but I ask you, which team deploys the three-point shot as a weapon the best in the NBA? I think it's this team, the San Antonio Spurs. Which team, to me, for a veteran player, is the most fun to play with and for because the players are so close and like each other so much? I think it's this team. Which coach, as you point out, regulates minutes better than any coach? It's this coach. So what would not be to like about the San Antonio Spurs? Because we know Ray is the greatest three-point shooter ever. He's the perfect weapon for Popovich and company. He would blend right in. They wouldn't, hey, if he didn't want to play one dribble of training camp, Pop would say, stay home. They don't care. They know what he can do. He knows how they play. And just me, in watching Ray through last year's playoffs, I saw no signs, not a single sign of a player who needed to think about retiring. I thought he played hard. He played at a high level. And I was shocked when I looked it up. He averaged 31 minutes a game through the 5 NBA Finals games. So he wasn't playing low minutes for the Heat. He was playing up into the 30s. Well, so what's the problem here?
Well, first of all, he understands what an ideal situation it is for him in San Antonio. Greg Popovich, he has such profound respect from the players because, you know what, he saves their bodies and he protects them from themselves. And that really resonates league-wide with a lot of players, particularly aging veterans, because they realize how important that is. So that definitely gives Pop and the San Antonio Spurs an upper hand. I just don't know if it gives them more of an upper hand than his relationship with LeBron and what they're trying to do in Cleveland. Because make no mistake, LeBron James is not just a player. LeBron James is practically the GM and the president. You got some member, at least one member of this crew that's a member of that front office. And Randy, do not underestimate for 1 second the impact that LeBron James has. And plus, they're coming from Miami. Pat Riley and the Miami Heat are going to be ready. They're going to be ready to go. All of that stuff is true. But Pat Riley and now Eric Spoelstra, his protege, they do work you. And those guys are cognizant of that. And as you get older and you go through those experiences of being on your feet, working, going through training camp, all of that other stuff, it's admirable as you can imagine it is, because you got to respect the pedigree that Pat Riley brings to the table in terms of how he goes about doing things. Not every veteran is receptive to that, which is why I say when you look at that and the impact that that has on a Ray Allen, he's going to look at different situations. Not to say that he's ruled out Miami, but just a guess here, I look at San Antonio, I look at Cleveland, I look at the Los Angeles Clippers, but not necessarily in that order. I think that LeBron's impact may have a bigger impact than the San Antonio Spurs, but I'm not ruling out San Antonio either.
Okay, so bottom line, gut feeling, number one, you think he will play one more year, or at least one more.
Mm-hmm.
And number two,
just a gut feeling.
Yeah, you're giving the edge to Cleveland over San Antonio.
Yeah, for right now, and I don't think he should be able. I don't think he should even consider retiring because I think Ray Allen's got a legitimate 2-3 years left in him.
All right. Well, at an EXO game in Connecticut, he said that he didn't want to rush to judgment and he would wait until September to see how he really feels about playing again. Stephen A., speaking of the Miami Heat, Ray Allen, the unofficial mayor, which would be you were in South Beach this weekend. What happened?
Yes, I was. The lovely Gabrielle Union is now officially Miss Gabrielle Wade. She married Dwyane Wade. I was in attendance for their wedding. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because Gabrielle Union just texted me about 20 minutes ago and told me to feel free to mention it. There weren't any cameras there, what have you, because they know that, when they're at weddings, they can't stand taking pictures, and they didn't want to subject their guests to it, but that's the only reason cameras weren't there, whatever. There was no secrecy going on. We didn't have to sign any confidentiality agreements or anything like that. And contrary to the report, Skip Bayless, LeBron James was in attendance, sitting at the same table as Dwyane Wade. He was there the whole time. He came there the night before. They were hanging together the night before. They were there. Dwyane Wade gave a lovely, beautiful toast to him, along with several other people that were in attendance. People will find that out according to what Gabrielle and D-Wade wants everybody to know. But I was honored to be in attendance for it. It was a spectacular wedding. It was something special to behold. They both seemed incredibly and blissfully happy. But LeBron James was in attendance.
Wow, that's good.
And everybody had a wonderful time.
So why were people speculating? I read all Saturday night and Sunday, various websites, speculating LeBron wasn't there because LeBron was tweeting. It appeared
Instagram.
Was it Instagram?
It was Instagram,
yeah. From Akron on Saturday. It felt like Saturday day or night.
It was Saturday at the same time that Dwyane was putting up something on Instagram.
Right.
And he put hashtag Akron, so people thought he was not there.
There was an event, I think it was at Prime 112. I mean, I'm not sure which restaurant it was because I got in there late. Okay. But Dwyane Wade had, a dinner with a lot of people close to him. Right. LeBron was there, too. LeBron was there the whole weekend with, from Friday through Saturday with his boy. I left the reception before LeBron James left. All of this stuff that he wasn't there and all this, a bunch of lies, people not knowing what the hell they're talking about.
That's good. That's really good
to
know.
Not true.
I wonder if LeBron was just playing with people. Like
perhaps, have a little fun with us and have us start the rumor and keep it going. Well, I'm glad he was there, Stephen A. I'm glad you clarified that. That shows that they really are truly good friends. That's his brother.
They are. And Dwyane Wade said during the toast, literally during the toast, he doesn't give a damn what anybody's saying. Whether LeBron James left or whatever the case may be, that is still his brother. He said, we're brothers.
I love it.
Got nothing but love for each other.
All right.
All of it's, all that stuff y'all were hearing about, bunch of lies.
I love it.
I was there.
Okay, good. And shout out to Miles over at Prime 112. Well, welcome back to First Take, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get to the football, we want to ask Stephen A. a quick question. Tomorrow's a big day for you. It's the debut of the Stephen A. Smith Show on Mad Dog Radio on Sirius from 1 to 3. Do you have anything big planned for said debut?
Yes, I have something very big planned. I'm showing up.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's just that simple. I mean, it's the Stephen A. Smith Show. It's nationwide. I mean, listen, there obviously are going to be players in the days and the weeks to come that are going to be calling in. There's going to be a few Hollywood stars that are going to call in that promised me they would definitely call in. They're going to be chiming in. My man Skip Bayless better call in.
I was going to say.
It doesn't have to be tomorrow.
But he will.
Skip will have the call-in number. He's in the car half the time. He better be listening to me every day from 1 to 3, okay? and he better make sure that he calls it. Now, he ain't allowed to call in too much because he get on my nerves enough on national television.
Understandable.
But you're allowed to call in every now and then.
Yeah.
Mi casa, su casa. You know what I'm saying? That's how it goes.
I don't make enough money to afford Sirius Radio on my car.
What?
But how are you going to survive long term without your boy Ryan Ruocco and without this boy?
Well, first of all, it ain't got nothing to do with you because I'm going to still be doing this with you every day. As far as my man Ryan Rucco, he's special. The guy's only 27 years old. Skip, this dude's a star already, and he's got tremendous promise, an incredible career waiting for him. You know, I'm approaching 50, my man. I got to make these big moves while their time's running out. So I got to do what I got to do.
Time is not running out. You have another 30 years before time is running out. You can work till you're 80.
I wish.
You can work till you're 80. All right,
my hairline got about 1.
The Stephen A. Smith Show, ladies and gentlemen, on Mad Dog Radio on Sirius from 1 to 3. The show starts tomorrow. Make sure you guys tune in. Hear his unfiltered take on every single thing. And every now and again, Skip Bayless may call in. Let's move on to the NFL, shall we? He may. According to ESPN sources and multiple reports, the Patriots have traded backup Ryan Mallett to the Texans. Is Mallett the answer for Houston? Stephen A. Smith, the question is for you.
It remains to be seen because this is a guy that just got beat out by a rookie in Garoppolo, okay? So that doesn't bode well for him, but Bill O'Brien is familiar with Ryan Mallett. He has been working under Tom Brady for several years. You'd like to believe he's learned something, and as a result of that, I anticipate that he'll be just fine. And when you consider the putrid quarterback situation that they've got going on in Houston, it was definitely a wise move for Bill O'Brien to grab him. You've got Andre Johnson there to throw the football to. You've got Arian Foster coming out of the backfield to run the football. You're going to have a much improved defense. It remains to be seen what Mallett will be able to do. But I completely support Bill O'Brien making this move because I know he brought in somebody he's familiar with, and he has some semblance of a belief in Skip, and I think that points in the right direction. Let's face reality. There's nowhere to go but up for Houston. When you end last season losing 14 straight games, you finished 2-14 on the year. There's nowhere to go but up. And I think because of that, I think you look at it and you say that to some degree you're playing with house money right now. So I think that it was a wise move on Bill O'Brien's part. Yeah,
house money like no money because they stole him. They got him for a conditional 7th-round draft pick. Man, that's not exactly like Houston's betting the ranch on Ryan Mallett. I don't think he'll prove to be the answer in Houston. I was on record before that draft. I'm not a Ryan Mallett fan. He's got huge prototypical talent, which prompted our guy Ryan Clark after the Redskins scrimmage. Remember the Patriots? He said, man, Ryan Mallett is a starting quarterback in this league. Well, if you watched him at Arkansas, when it came time to make the big play, there were some deadheaded moments from Ryan Mallett at Arkansas. He's one of those guys that looks the part and doesn't always play the part. And yet Bill O'Brien knows what he's getting because, remember, he was coaching the Patriots. He was the coordinator during Ryan Mallett's rookie year. So he knows that it's worth a shot. Maybe he could tweak and finesse and try to get something that would work for them in Houston. Well, but you're right. They're in some trouble with the quarterback position right now.
There's no question they're in trouble, but let's keep in mind that Bill O'Brien is not just a head coach. He's going to be the offensive coordinator. So you've got to have somebody in place that you're comfortable with, that you speak the same language. And even though we looked at them and we said, you know what are they going to do? It's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick as this starting quarterback. None of us had any faith in that. You've got Andre Johnson. You've got Hopkins. Okay, you've got Arian Foster. You've got some weapons to some degree, but the quarterback position is obviously the most important. You're almost looking for a situation, Skip, where the quarterback doesn't end up losing games for you the way Matt Schaub did, throwing pick sixes all over the place last season before he was shipped out of town. So I just think that that's what you're looking for if you're Bill O'Brien, and it was incredibly important to get somebody in there who understands what you're trying to do, and more importantly is very familiar with it because you've already worked with them. And I think that's the advantage that they have here, and that's why I don't have a problem with Mallett being there. All
right, well, you guys speak of fits and what's the right fit. Let's talk about Michael Sam before we end the show. Your gut feeling, by tomorrow, where do you think Michael Sam will be, Skip?
Stephen A., I would like to think that he winds up on the St. Louis Rams 10-man practice squad. But I'm a little surprised that hasn't happened yet. So I'm starting to have my doubts about that. And I stand by what I said earlier in the show. It's difficult for any other team, 4-3 team, to bring in Michael Sam right ahead of the regular season opener because he's a big story. it's not a distraction so much as it's just a big bombshell story. The media will descend, your players will get asked about it, your coach will get asked about it, and they would like to keep the focus on trying to win the opening game as opposed to on Michael Sam, which it would become if you brought him in today or tomorrow.
Well, Skip, I'm inclined to agree with you that the practice squad with St. Louis may very well be a likely landing spot for him, because it's clear with what Jeff Fisher did in terms of waiting that this is a kid he's rooting for. He's not rooting against him. He said the kid works hard. He did everything we asked him to do, et cetera, et cetera. We're just deep at this particular position. So I think that, in the next few hours, if not the next day or two, if we see no one touch him, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Fisher came back and said, you know what, come back on this squad. But it's clearly going to be one of those feel-good character kind of things, as opposed to, him just, not landing a spot at all. Because clearly, bottom line, Skip, is this. He played well enough in the preseason for you to sit there and say he should be playing for somebody, at least on their practice squad.
Yep, I completely concur. But if the NFL says no, then I would encourage this kid, because I think he's productive, to go to Canada and just show him. I mean, light up Canada, man. Show him. Because he belongs on some NFL roster. He was a very productive Southeastern Conference football player, and he will produce in the National Football League given the opportunity.
All right, before we go, a couple of quick announcements again.